The story begins with Magu and his friends hunting a boar, and thanks to his excellent archery skills, they easily manage to do so. After thanking them, they all invite Magu to join their party, and he decides to put his reply on hold until he gets a skill, as today is his coming-of-age ceremony. Apparently, people who become adults are given a skill from God, and while most of them are pretty useful, some skills can bring misfortune as well. Magu wishes to become like his parents, who died protecting him and the city they lived in. With hope in his heart, Magu entered the temple for his coming-of-age ceremony, only to find out that he received a skill named Decoy. This skill attracts monsters instead of the Huz and is said to be the worst skill present. Frustrated, Magu tells the priest that no one with this skill lives long, to which the priest replies that skills are predetermined and can't be changed. Once he walks outside the temple, Magu finds the townsfolk packing his stuff, and when he questions them about it, they tell Magu to go and live in the hunting shack in the mountains. Before he gets the chance to argue, the town's chief appears, telling Magu that monsters might attack the city due to his skill, and that they need to send him away in order to protect everyone else. Seeing everyone turn against him, Magu realizes that he has no other choice and ends up leaving the city. However, as soon as he reaches the forest, a dark kobold appears thanks to his skill and begins following him. Knowing that it might attack the city if he dies, Magu decides to use his decoy skill and lead the monsters deeper into the forest. Eventually, he reaches the hunter's shack, but before he gets the chance to do anything, the kobold manages to land a strike, breaking his bow and causing a grave injury. But just as Magu is about to lose hope, knowing that it's the end for him, his mother's last words appear in his mind, giving Magu the courage to unsheath his sword and stab the kobold from behind. However, there seems to be more than one kobold present, and while fighting all of them at once, one of the kobolds lands a critical punch on Magu. But even then, he somehow stands back up, unwilling to give up. Just then, a wild lowly appears, complimenting his wise words, and after attacking all the kobolds present, decides to help Magu out. However, that attack is not enough to deal with the kobolds, and while Magu looks at her in surprise, one of those kobolds tries attacking him. After Magu manages to dodge, he advises the girl to run away. With that, Magu prepares to take on the 3 remaining kobolds, and just as they are about to jump him, the girl easily electrocutes all 3 of them, which results in an explosion, sending Magu flying as well. Soon after, he wakes up on her lap and starts to panic after remembering the kobolds, only to be reassured by her that they are already taken care of. Curious, Magu wonders if she's a mage, to which the girl disagrees and decides to show him her real form. She then transforms into a giant dragon, and Magu instantly realizes that it looks like a divine beast. Nonetheless, she transforms back and asks Magu to call her Loa from now on. Magu ends up introducing himself as well and advises Loa to run away as his skill constantly attracts monsters. Hearing this makes Loa crack up, and she asks if he really believes a dragon like her can't deal with some small fries. While he agrees, Magu doesn't want to bother her anymore, but Loa lets him know that she was attracted by his voice when he showed courage while fighting the kobolds. She further elaborates that the decoy skill is known as a caller to dragons, and with this skill, he can call a divine beast using his thoughts as voice, which makes it a valuable power. Still a little unsure about it, Magu asks Loa the reason others with decoy skill had such short lifespans, to which she replies, saying that they had their minds corrupted and felt like the divine beasts owed them everything. Magu is the only decoy she found with a kind heart, as dragons don't normally help such cloud-minded people. Moreover, Loa informs Magu that he passed and that she has decided to lend him her strength. Knowing how he nearly gave up on protecting the townsfolk, Magu asks if he can be of use to someone again, and Loa agrees, telling Magu that he's more than capable. He pats her head and after standing up, formally asks Loa to lend him her power, to which she instantly agrees and gives him a hug. With that being said, the 2 of them head inside the hunter's shack, and the next morning, the door swings open, followed by the appearance of a baddie with honkers the size of her face. Confused, Magu questions who she is, and instead of replying, she begins laughing, saying that she has no other choice but to introduce herself. With that, she informs him that her name is Fiona and she's a phoenix. Apparently, she felt his passion and came across the sea to meet him. Magu is impressed to hear that, as it's generally a month's walk, and can't believe she did it in just one night. Furthermore, he begins to wonder just how far his so-called caller skill even reaches. Fiona lets Magu know that it's normal for him to be surprised, but she's a bit disappointed as she thought he'd be more surprised than this. Additionally, by the looks of how Magu's sleeping, Fiona figures that he has already had a similar experience and gets shocked after seeing Loa, who, while rubbing her eyes, asks who Magu is talking to so early in the morning. She then asks if he had fun yesterday, and when Magu mentions that he thought Loa was sleeping in a different room, Loa completely ignores him and talks about the bird that has appeared in their house. Fiona also realizes that Loa is a dragon, and the tension between the flatty and the busty starts to rise. When Magu asks what's going on all of a sudden, Loa lets him know that dragons and phoenixes don't get along, and Fiona adds that they have fought for thousands of years for sky supremacy. Following that, a fight breaks out between the two, which results in them getting scolded by Magu for almost destroying the one shelter he has. Not only that, but Magu, knowing that Fiona has come from afar to help him, asks the reason she keeps calling him master and asks her to call him by his name. However, Fiona refuses, saying that as a part of the Phoenix custom, she must serve the caller if their spirit is deemed worthy by her, which is why it's impossible for her to suddenly say his name. When Magu asks why she deemed his spirit worthy, Fiona replies that it was because of his passionate words, and at a time like this, who will help him out if not her? Magu mentions that it will be difficult for him if he doesn't borrow the powers of a divine beast, and tells the girls how glad he is to have them willing to lend their powers. Moreover, Magu tells them that he's talking about both of them, and after exchanging a glance full of disgust, Loa tells Magu that she's not as hard-headed as the boomer dragons and can probably deal with it. Fiona also adds that she's in, as backing out now will feel as if she lost to a little midget like Loa. Overjoyed, Magu grabs both of their hands, thanking them for their support. Following that, all three of them enjoy eating breakfast together, and Magu realizes that he will have to think about getting more food from now on. Luckily, he knows the area, so getting wild vegetables and water won't be too hard, but he suggests securing a field and water well first. Following that, they head out, and while the beasts appreciate the fact that Magu is in high spirits, they wonder if he's all right with pulling the wagon on his own. Magu, sweating like a person who went 5 rounds, tells the girls to leave it to him. Fiona mentions that his wound hasn't healed yet and advises him to rely on them, which results in Magu patting her head, asking her not to make such a face as he's all right. Furthermore, the girls ask why he is living in such a place, as it shouldn't be a problem for him to go shopping in a human village. This forces Magu to reveal that he was kicked out, which ends up pissing both the divine beasts off. Fiona, who is furious, wonders if she should go and deal with those townsfolk, but gets told by Magu that it's already in the past. Following that, he diverts their attention to the beautiful lake in front of them, saying that they will be getting their water from here, and as there's a river nearby, catching fish won't be an issue. Without wasting a second, Loa instantly dives into the water and asks Fiona to join her, only to be told by her that she's a phoenix and doesn't want her flames to go out. However, Loa ends up pulling her in the water anyway. After playing around for a while, Fiona returns, and after seeing her drenched curves, Magu can't help but be flustered. Judging by his expression, Fiona asks if something is wrong and figures that he must like the way she's dressed. Magu asks her to back up as it's hard for him to find a place to look, but Fiona replies that she doesn't mind and would enjoy the fact that she's liked by the master. At the same time, Loa appears as well, calling Magu a freak, asking if he thinks nothing of her. Nonetheless, the three of them manage to fill the wagon full of water, which makes Magu realize how convenient divine beasts are. Furthermore, as they manage to get a lot of fish and vegetables as well, Magu promised to make a feast for lunch. Suddenly, Fiona notices something and tells Magu to stay back as something is coming their way. Magu asks if it's some kind of monster, and when Loa decides to help her out, Fiona asks her to stay with Magu. Before long, a giant man-eating troll emerges from the shadows, and seeing that it's in the middle of nowhere, Magu figures that it must have been drawn to him. Without wasting any time, Fiona charges the troll and jumps in the air to land an attack, but just as she is about to do so, her flames extinguish. Magu wonders if it's because she was covered in water and tries grabbing his sword to help her out. At the same time, the troll almost attacks her, but just in time, Fiona decides to get serious and transforms into her original form. With that, she flies high in the sky and starts shooting several fireballs at the troll. As expected, the troll is burned to its demise, and after transforming into her human self, she gets praised by Magu. However, Loa calls for Magu and lets him know that they don't have time to be carefree, as they are already surrounded. For the time being, he suggests getting out of this place, and while they were attacked on their way back, the three of them manage to bring the supplies back to their house. There, Magu realizes that he needs to do something about the demons before getting his life in order, and Loa suggests that she get rid of all the demons around. When Magu asks if it's possible, Loa replies that she can do it to some extent, as all she needs to do is fly near the mountain. Fiona figures that she plans to assert her territory against the other demons and asks if it's okay, as once a dragon establishes a territory, they stay there for the rest of their life. Magu gets shocked hearing this and decides to come up with something else if it's so important to Loa. However, Loa lets him know that dragons are to be on their own someday, and it might not be a bad idea to be on her own in the mountains with Magu. Not only that, but the mountain seems to be the perfect place for her, as she has been doing great ever since she came to this place. Even if she makes it her territory, it doesn't mean she can't go anywhere else. Since she will be living in his house, it's only natural for Magu to stake out the territory around the house. After saying all that, Loa stands up from her chair and requests that Magu treat her like an adult since she will have her own territory. As expected, Fiona makes fun of her for saying all that while looking like a washboard, causing Loa to get furious. Later that day, they all enjoy eating some tasty lunch, and when the girls ask if he always eats food like this, Magu agrees, wondering about the kind of food divine beasts eat, to which the girls reply that all they eat is raw meat. After that, Fiona asks about Magu's plan going forward, and now that they have enough water, Magu wants to try making a field. While Loa gets confused, Fiona realizes that it's the place where humans grow vegetables and asks why they can't just get them from the mountains, but gets told by Magu that he wishes to reduce any risk. Moreover, having a farm near the house is convenient, and while the girls don't understand much, they decide to help. Magu gets excited, saying that he always wanted a big farm, causing Loa to wonder if he even knows how to farm. To her surprise, Magu agrees, telling her that he helped out a lot in the field with a friend. Hearing all this makes Fiona remember that they need water for the field, to which Magu agrees, saying that they not only need it for the field but for their daily lives as well. This makes him wonder if canals and wells can be built on their own. Nonetheless, Fiona reminds Magu that they have plenty of time and can live their lives the way they want. With that being said, Loa decides to go and chase away the demons. Meanwhile, Magu plans on plowing the fields, but he gets stopped by Fiona, who tells him to wait. Following that, she uses her powers and, after telling Magu that they will be in the mountains for a while, hands him a sword. As soon as he grabs it, Magu starts feeling incredibly light and gets told by Fiona that it's a sword made with her powers and will surely help him a lot. Magu gets a bit disappointed over the fact that he is always receiving help without giving anything in return. Shockingly, Fiona agrees, saying that he's pretty weak, pathetic and a sad excuse of a man, but he still tries saving her from the trolls, which is enough of a reason for her to serve him. Simultaneously, Loa comes back, saying that she had a bad feeling about leaving them two of their own and electrocutes them as a punishment for getting lovey-dovey. But to her shock, Magu uses his sword and jumps pretty high in the sky with Fiona in his arms, and at this point, he makes up his mind to be more useful to both of them. The next morning, Magu wakes up and decides to make food before the girls wake up. But as soon as he leaves the house, Magu finds a water well present outside. As expected, he gets puzzled and thinks that there wasn't one here yesterday. Wondering if it's drinkable, he decides to try it out when suddenly, a thick mommy appears, asking if he is the caller who summoned her. Magu notices that his skill has started to flicker as soon as she arrives, and after introducing himself, asks who she is. The girl also introduces herself as Mera, informing him that she is just an insignificant water spirit. This makes him wonder if she is also a divine beast, to which she agrees, saying that she's from the Kelpie tribe. Apparently, the Kelpies are a peculiar tribe of horses that freely reign over the underwater. Nonetheless, he questions the reason behind her arrival, but first of all, Mera tells Magu not to use honorifics while talking to her, as Kelpies have an ancient rule, which is to always lend a hand to callers who need their help. Moreover, she got really worried after finding out that her caller was in need of a water well. Magu freaks out after hearing this and apologizes as he doesn't know what to say, but Mera replies that she is happy to see him delighted, especially because she worked really hard to get here. Magu then thanks her and wonders how she made such a magnificent water well in just one night. Mera showcases her powers, letting him know that all she did was manipulate some underground water and reassures him that it's safe to drink. Suddenly, the girls appear as well, and while Fiona is a bit frustrated seeing her, Loa, on the other hand, is pretty happy. Mera gets surprised seeing both a dragon and a phoenix living together as well. While Loa happily greets Mera, Fiona, on the other hand, gets annoyed and questions why Magu keeps attracting divine beasts who are her natural enemies. With that, they all decide to have breakfast together, and after they are done, Mera mentions that she has never had a human meal before, and when Magu says that this was the only way he could thank her, she reassures him that it was really good and wonders what he is going to do now. Loa intervenes, letting her know that they will be planting a field. Without wasting a second, Loa starts sowing all the seeds, and even when Magu warns her that it's the wrong time to grow these seeds, she refuses to listen, saying that it'll be all right. Meanwhile, Mera questions the reason Magu is living deep in the mountains instead of being closer to a human settlement, and having no other choice, he is forced to tell her the truth as well. However, Magu also adds that both Fiona and Loa have helped him a lot, so his life is pretty good. Just then, Loa interrupts him, saying that they are all set, and when he questions what she's going to do, Loa tells them to just sit and watch. With that, she uses her powers and makes those plants grow in an instant. Both Magu and Mera are beyond shocked after seeing what just happened, and when he asks if a dragon can even do this, Loa lets him know that there are various kinds of dragons. Her grandpa is a terrestrial dragon who controls the power of the earth, so she inherited his powers and can help plants grow. Nonetheless, she breaks one of the star-shaped tomatoes and asks Magu, along with the others, to give it a taste. As soon as they take a bite, they find the flavor to be quite delicious. However, Magu gives her thanks to Mera as she needs a lot of water to make plants grow with her powers, which was impossible before, as they had no waterways. With a smile on her face, Mera replies that she's glad to help. On the other hand, Fiona, while munching on the tomatoes, suggests working hard and having the whole area plowed by nightfall, to which Magu agrees, saying that they can eat good food every day. Nevertheless, after working their butts off the whole day, Magu managed to complete the plowing process, but he wasn't the only one, as Fiona and Loa made sure to help him out as well. Following that, Mera brings some fresh juice for everyone and suggests making a watering hole near the fields as well. While Magu seems to like the idea, he is unsure if he wants Mera to work without taking a break. Mera lets him know that she didn't work as hard as the other two girls, and as this area is close to a watering hole, it'll make her job pretty easy. Eventually, she manages to find the connection and causes a lot of water to blast off from the surface. Mera realizes that it's a little different from what she expected, and Loa adds that it's warm and smells like nothing she has smelled before. Magu instantly realizes what this is and asks Mera if she can make a bath out of it. He further elaborates and asks if she can surround it with rocks and fill it with hot water so they can sit and soak in it. This comes as a surprise to the girls as they have never heard of something like this, and Magu informs them that people soak in hot water to relieve fatigue, which is something Mera finds pretty strange. However, she still agrees to build it, and while she figures out a way to make this dream a reality, Fiona's stomach begins to grumble. After having dinner, the girls go to sleep while Maria works hard building the bath. Just like that, the bath was ready, and while Magu was checking it out, Mera asked if she could stay at his house for a little while. She then explains that their powers are hard to handle, so young Kelpies like her leave their homeland to gain training and experience. She came to this mountain in order to do her training and believes that she can help Magu even more. As expected from Magu, he instantly agrees, allowing her to stay for as long as she likes. Additionally, she lets her know that he's glad to have her here with them. Hearing this causes a smile to appear on Mera's face, and she shakes his hand, telling Magu that she is looking forward to working with him from now on. On their way back, Magu couldn't believe he got to live in such an environment when he got kicked out of his town a few days ago. Mera makes sure to motivate him by saying that he will get settled in a little bit and should do what he can for now. On the other hand, one of the girls from his town spies on Magu, surprised to see that he's still alive. Elsewhere, the townsfolk are discussing the fact that they haven't seen any monsters lately and figure that Magu must have drawn them deeper into the forest. Before long, the girl Magu was friends with entered the room and informed everyone that Magu was still alive. She further mentions that there was a bathroom and a farm next to the hunter's shack. Not only that, but Magu was not present there alone, as there was a dragon living nearby as well. Everyone is shocked to hear about the dragon, and one of the townsfolk suggests eliminating Magu at once, as his decoy skill is too dangerous. According to him, if Magu were to get on the dragon's nerves, it could target and destroy the entire town. One of Magu's friends suggests monitoring Magu so they can just stop him before anything goes wrong, but his idea instantly gets rejected by the others. Simultaneously, the nearly expired town chief also appears, saying that it's heartbreaking to allow Magu to suffer any longer. Furthermore, he orders his men to gather all those confident in their skills, as they need to get rid of Magu before the dragon can rampage. On the other hand, Magu finally takes off his bandages and thinks about how he needs to train so he doesn't get rusty. He then picks up the sword Fiona gave him and realizes that it looks like some kind of ceremonial sword. While he's busy admiring the sword, Loa appears and doesn't seem really happy about what he's doing. When Magu asks if something is wrong, Loa replies that she wants Magu to have something from her as well, to which Magu replies, reassuring her that she helps him a lot, and he wouldn't be where he is without her help. However, Loa argues that giving the caller a portion of power is one of the dragon traditions. To ensure the safety of the caller, the divine beasts can entrust them with a portion of their power, and Loa believes that Fiona must have similar traditions as well. She further elaborates that this tradition comes from the legend of the first caller. During that time, a demon lord tried to rule over the world, but there was a human who could communicate with the divine beasts and used their powers to defeat the demons. He came to be known as the first caller, and he died in order to ensure the demon king was defeated. With that being said, she makes a dagger for him as well, telling Magu that she wants him to use it in order to protect himself. Magu gladly accepts the gift and asks Loa to allow him to use this power if something were to happen to her. Loa's face brightens up after hearing this, and Magu adds the fact that he might need it more than the others. Loa then tells him not to overdo it and receives a pat on the head as a thank you. Later that day, Magu is outside, using his bow and arrow to enhance his hunting skills. Luckily, he manages to hunt down a rabbit, and since he has gone too far away from the cabin, Magu decides to head back home. Suddenly, he hears something and notices a giant fireball coming his way. Magu ducks just in time and manages to dodge it. Apparently, the chief, who's shorter than everyone's cat, was behind this attack, and Magu, who is confused, asks why the town chief and everyone else are up in the mountains. The chief mentions that his decoy skill appears to have summoned a dragon, and they can't let such a dangerous person live any longer. Before Magu even gets the chance to explain anything, the chief tells Magu that he needs to disappear, and that's his responsibility as chief of this town. This situation reminds Magu that the chief has great sage skills and has protected the town from monsters for decades, which makes him wonder if he can even escape from such a person. Suddenly, one of the swordsmen tries attacking Magu, but he manages to dodge and tells them that none of this would have happened if they hadn't given him the decoy skill. But when they continue telling Magu to die before he destroys the town, he argues that he did what they wanted, but wanting him to die is far too selfish. The chief reminds him that they took care of him growing up and asks if that means nothing to him. However, Magu reminds him that he also left the town, prepared to die just to keep the monsters from attacking his home. Furthermore, he mentions that dragons don't want to destroy their own territory and are different from other monsters. But the chief finds it hard to believe that a freaky dimwit like him could communicate with the dragons, and while he charges up his attack, his friends are forced to pin him down against the tree. They make sure to apologize, but it doesn't matter to Magu as all he sees is a giant fireball heading his way. Luckily, just in time, Magu takes out the sword Fiona gave him and uses it to cut the fireball in half. This impresses even Magu, who can't believe he was able to destroy their magic using a sword. Nonetheless, the town chief fails to give up and shoots several water bullets at him. Magu realizes that using Fiona's sword against water magic would be a bad choice and uses Loa's dagger to make a shield out of the ground. The village chief gets flabbergasted by seeing what Magu just did and asks how he acquired such extraordinary power. Magu lets him know that this is the power of the decoy that he and his followers have cast out. But instead of making use of the decoy skill, the thick-headed geezer mentions that Magu is dangerous to the town. Although Magu continues to borrow the powers of the beast, it's getting hard for him to be hit by magic over and over again. However, knowing that he can use his own magic skill and the magical weapons, Magu decides to run away, but gets told by the chief that he won't let him live like this. With that being said, he decides to use a magic spell named Heavenly Detonation, and Magu instantly remembers this as when a huge swarm of monsters attacked a town. This spell wiped out the entire town with just one strike. Magu decides to run or else he could be hit, but remembers that the damage will be too great, and even if he runs away, everyone else will be caught in the middle. However, it can be stopped if he breaks the staff and dashes towards the chief, but before he even gets the chance to do anything, something else breaks the staff, and it turns out to be none other than Fiona in her true form. The oldie loses some years of his life seeing a phoenix in front of him, and when Fiona asks who these guys are, Magu lets her know that they are the leaders from his hometown. Fiona remembers that they are the ones who drove him away and wonders if they want to eliminate him now. The town chief interrupts their conversation, asking Magu if he intends to have all of them wiped out. Hearing this infuriates Fiona, and while she would have loved to punish them, there is someone who's much angrier than she is. Simultaneously, Loa appears behind them, letting them know that not only did they mess up her territory, but they also raised their hand against her precious caller. Seeing two giant beasts in front of them, the chief couldn't manage to utter a word out of his mouth. Meanwhile, Magu is impressed by how furious Loa currently is and finally understands why the townsfolk wanted to eliminate him. Having no other choice, the chief starts apologizing, saying that they had no idea the dragon allowed Magu to get to her, as all he wanted to do was keep him away from their town. Loa questions if they wanted to drive him all the way to the afterlife, and the chief fails to answer her. She then asks if the chief has ever thought why God gave humans the decoy skill, to which he replies that he believed it was a skill that could attract demons. Fiona mentions that humans seem to have forgotten the importance of the caller, as there are no invasions of demons or catastrophes like there used to be. Meanwhile, Loa explains to the townsfolk that a caller is a person who communicates with the divine beasts to protect mankind. And when humans can't handle things on their own, they ask for the help of a divine beast. Legend has it that callers are born before a great disaster occurs. She further mentions that seeing such powerless people get hold of such power, but instead of using it, trying to erase it, is pretty pathetic. Magu then thanks Loa and asks her to leave it at that. Afterward, he tells the chief that these creatures are capable of reason and won't attack the city if he doesn't mess with them. Additionally, he accepts his mistake for making the townsfolk nervous and reassures them that he won't be doing anything to the city. Living in the forest is the last thing he can do for his hometown. Lastly, he requests them to return to the town as it's the best way for both of them to live in peace. With that being said, the town chief accepts his request, apologizes for misunderstanding Magu, and trying to wipe him out. Afterward, the townsfolk start walking away, and before they leave, Magu asks them to keep his hometown alive, to which the chief agrees. Following that, Fiona mentions how she would have put a few holes in them if it were her, but Magu replies that it will be okay, as the chief promised not to touch him anymore. Suddenly, he realizes that Mera is not present with them and wonders if she got hurt because of him. But after returning home, they see her hanging out with some of the losers she caught. Mera then informs Magu that they barged into the house, telling her to hand over the collar, and Loa adds that she told Mera to guard the house while they went to help him. This makes him glad that Mera is not hurt, and Loa suggests leaving them by the mountain. With that, Magu decides to prepare a feast as he caused trouble for everyone, making the girls excited. Later that night, Magu believes that he won't need his caller's skill in such a peaceful world and thinks about how he just wants to live a quiet life. Now, it's been a few weeks since the incident, and they have been living in peace without any major problems. With Loa's help, Magu has managed to grow a lot of crops, and it's his job to water the plants daily. After he is done for the day, Magu decides to take a bath and ends up taking a dip in the newly made hot spring. While he has been through a lot due to his skill, Magu never thought he would be living such a luxurious life. Before long, he starts feeling tired and figures that sleeping for a little moment wouldn't hurt. Just then, he hears Fiona's voice and sees the two caked-up baddies ready to join him. Instantly, Magu hides his little commando and reminds Fiona that the hot springs are separated for men and women. Furthermore, he notices that she is already drenched, and Mera explains that Fiona was helping her with training, and while doing so, Mera got distracted and ended up almost drowning Fiona. Realizing that she might catch a cold like this, he offers to give them his spot and decides to get out. But Mera grabs his arm, asking if he wants to share the bath with them. With that, Fiona promises not to go into the hot spring with Magu while bare-skinned or wearing see-through clothes, telling him not to worry anymore. While the two of them enjoy the hot bath, Magu can barely keep his sausage to himself. Fiona further mentions how she thought it would be like boiling in a kettle, but Mera reassures her that she doesn't have to worry, as the temperature is perfectly controlled. Suddenly, Loa appears above them in the form of a dragon, letting Magu know that she has hunted her prey. However, after noticing everyone enjoying the hot spring, Loa decides to join as well. She transforms back to her human form, not wearing any clothes this time, and dives into the hot spring. Magu asks her to get in normally next time and tells Loa to wrap herself in a towel, as he isn't really fond of those A-cups. But when Loa tells him that she doesn't seem to mind, the others forcefully make her cover herself. At the same time, they all hear the voice of a cat, and after taking a closer look, Magu finds a black cat hiding behind the bushes. After holding it in his hand, Magu realizes that it looks pretty weak and gets told by Fiona that it's a monster. Freaked out, Magu asks about the kind, and Mera mentions that it's difficult to tell when they are so small, as their characteristics only appear when they grow up. Loa lets them know that she doesn't sense any hostility and believes that it wouldn't be a problem. However, Fiona still finds it strange how this cat got into the mountains even when it's Loa's territory. Magu suggests helping him out if it's harmless, to which Fiona agrees, saying that it would be a shame to leave a youngling on its own. With that being said, Magu decides to head back and make something to eat, and as soon as he walks away, Loa takes this chance to cop a feel of those divine honkers. Furious, Fiona questions what she was trying to do, and Loa replies that the kitty looked hungry, which made her curious if any milk had come out of them. Later that day, Magu feeds the kitty some soup as his father hasn't returned with the milk yet. Loa comments on how the cat's strength has returned thanks to Mera's magic, and is interested to know how it even got in. Mera mentions that it's very dangerous for a monster child to enter a dragon's territory, and normally, they wouldn't do that. This makes Magu wonder if another divine beast has appeared, but Fiona mentions that if such a thing happened, they would have noticed it by now. Suddenly, a thought pops into Mera's mind, and she figures that the cat must have come from an area where it couldn't see Loa flying around, for example, a cave. Hearing all this causes Magu to wonder if the kobolds have started living in the caves as well, and since they don't want any more monsters attacking them, Loa suggests exploring the mountain. Knowing that the food situation has improved, Magu realizes that they have a lot of time on their hands and decides to get going today. Mera also adds that a monster-infested cave would be such a nuisance, and it would be best if they find it as soon as possible. Loa agrees, saying that they can't just let them do whatever they want in their territory. Fiona doesn't seem to have a problem with it either, and with that, Magu asks the kitty to stay at the house and wait for them. However, he already starts feeling bad about leaving the kitty alone while Loa warns the cat not to get so attached to her collar. Suddenly, everyone hears a loud rumble, and it comes from none other than Fiona's stomach. This makes Magu decide to eat lunch first and hopes nothing goes wrong in their upcoming adventure. Later that day, they head deeper into the forest, and eventually, Loa ends up finding a kobold's nest. She mentions that it's similar to the place where she was born, but when strangers go in, they need to be careful and move slowly. This makes Magu realize that this valley has many places to hide, which makes it a perfect natural fortress. Following that, Loa calls Fiona and Mera, asking if they feel something strange. Both of them agree, saying that the magical power of the surrounding area seems to be cut off only in that place. Suspicious, Fiona ends up attacking that area and mentions that the cave they originally found has a weird smell. This makes her wonder if they should head back, as it seems pretty dangerous. Suddenly, Loa transforms into a dragon due to the appearance of several monsters, and while attacking them, asks Magu to get back. Fiona wonders if this cave is actually a dungeon, and Mera agrees, saying that it's a feature of some dungeons where all the monsters appear at once. Magu, on the other hand, figures that it's better for them to deal with this quickly and asks the girls if it's okay to fight head-on. Fiona agrees, saying that they should fight them here and now, as the one who created this dungeon most likely knows about them. Loa is down as well because she really seems to hate seeing a dungeon in her territory. Mera, on the other hand, mentions that the dungeon could become massive after absorbing more energy, and if that were to happen, there wouldn't be anything they could do about it. With that in mind, they all head inside the cave, and Magu is impressed to see the inside of a dungeon as it's his first time. Mera explains that they are aiming for the innermost section where they need to defeat the boss in order for the dungeon to stop functioning. Loa adds that they must defeat the boss as soon as they find it, as that's the rule of this world. Apart from that, Magu questions the reason she is clinging onto him this hard, wondering if she's scared despite being a dragon, but Loa replies that she's not scared at all and is just not good with dark places. This makes Magu pat her head, reassuring Loa that everyone here is more than strong enough and promises to use her power to protect everyone else. Curious, Mera asks if both the sword and the dagger contain their powers, to which he agrees and suddenly freaks out as he notices a couple of monsters right behind her. However, she easily takes care of them using her powers, saying that it's not nice to get in the way of their moment. Both Magu and Loa are impressed by her powers, and Mera mentions that there will be many times when monsters will unexpectedly attack him, and to protect him from such incidents, she gives him a water bracelet. Apparently, this is a part of her power, and using it will allow him to prevent surprise attacks. Magu makes sure to thank Mera, who mentions that it's nothing and she wishes to contribute at least something to the landlord. With that being said, the four of them went deeper into the dungeon, and even though he was attacked by multiple monsters, the three beast girls with him were more than enough to deal with them. But judging by the situation, Magu has realized that monsters attack whenever they go the wrong way, and it feels as if they are being guided. Loa mentions that it may be because they are about to reach the halfway point, and explains that a halfway point is a large room in the middle of the dungeon with a powerful monster known as the Keeper guarding it. Since it may be the main monster here, maybe it wants them to reach there quickly in order to test their strength. Fiona figures that it'll be fine as they have to get through it to find the innermost room anyway, to which Magu agrees, saying that guiding them might be a good thing. Hearing this, Fiona wraps her hand around Magu, praising him for getting the hang of it. Before long, they find themselves standing in front of a giant door, and Mera informs Magu that this is the hallway point. Furthermore, Fiona advises him not to be too rash, as when it comes to the keeper of a dungeon, even divine spirits like them might struggle. Magu agrees and decides to support them in any way possible. With that being said, they all transform into their true forms in order to break the door, and thanks to Fiona's and Loa's attack, they easily manage to destroy it. As they prepare to enter the room, Magu decides to calm down and remembers that everyone is here with him. Eventually, they all enter the halfway point room and come across an undead lizard man. Magu suddenly starts to panic after seeing this monster, and after noticing the wound on its face, he gets even more terrified. Worried, Loa asks if he's okay, and Magu tells the undead that he should have been defeated by his parents back then, and while taking out his sword, questions why it is still here. Lou notices that Magu's emotions are getting out of control, and Fiona asks if something is wrong with him. Magu lets them know that the lizard is one of the monsters that attacked his hometown a long time ago, and although both his parents managed to beat it, they were eliminated in the process. But now, someone has turned him into an undead. In the meantime, the lizard charges Magu and prepares to strike him down. Seeing the giant lizard that eliminated his parents in front of him, Magu freezes. Luckily, Mera saves him just in time, and even the other divine beasts are forced to get away due to the shockwave of his attack. While Magu starts to think about how he is being a burden to the others, Loa decides to hit him with her attack, but to her surprise, he manages to deflect it using his shield. Following that, he runs towards Magu once again, and this time, all three girls work together to make sure Magu isn't harmed. Seeing this, the lizard is forced to back away, and Lou tells Magu that they are all drawn towards him through his feelings and his strong desire to live. Furthermore, she wants to be with him more. That's why they can't let him throw away his life like this. This makes Magu remember that he is different from those days when he couldn't do anything, as now he's got the strength to fight and some absolute knockers to help him out. Knowing that it wouldn't be good for his life to end in a place like this, Magu tries attacking the lizard but gets blocked. But when the lizard tries counterattacking, Magu skillfully dodges the strike and manages to land a strike using Fiona's sword on the lizard's back. This sends the lizard flying and crashing into a nearby wall. Simultaneously, all the girls come running to Magu, asking if he's all right, to which he agrees and reassures them that the four of them will beat that monster. However, that persistent lizard gets back on its feet once again, and seeing the sword in his hand, they realize that it has the ability to distort magic. Magu starts thinking about a way around it and suddenly gets an idea, asking the girls to give him a minute. Meanwhile, the lizard lets out a scream and runs towards the girls. Fiona asks Mera to attack with her, and even though they both attack at once, their attack completely misses the lizard and lands on the wall behind him. This causes a dust screen to appear, taking away the lizard's sight. Out of nowhere, Magu appears and tries to attack, but the lizard easily blocks the attack with his shield. Following that, he swings his axe to cut Magu into two pieces, but before it gets the chance to do so, a beam of energy appears out of the smoke and hits the lizard point blank. This sends him crashing into the wall, enough to take care of him for good. Magu then mentions that he could hear Loa well enough, no matter where he was, and if he could communicate with his voice, she'd be able to see the lizard's exact location even through the smoke screen. This is exactly how they managed to defeat the lizard. Afterward, Mera mentions that she's happy to see it all work out and lets him know that even her bracelet couldn't have saved him from Loa's attack. Loa is also glad that her attack didn't hit Magu, which makes Magu apologize and promise not to be so reckless next time. With that being said, he reminds the others that they need to defeat the dungeon boss and get back to living in peace. However, he is a little worried about how strong the boss might be if the monster at the midpoint was this strong. Mera begins thinking about it as well when, out of nowhere, a hole opens behind her. A giant hand emerges out of that hole, trying to catch her, but just in time, Magu pushes Mera away. But as a result, he gets caught by that hand and gets dragged inside that hole while the girls couldn't do anything. The one who grabbed Magu is a skeleton monster who has slept within the land for thousands of years. He believes that his full power can be restored and hopes not to make the same mistake he once made, so the world can be in his hands once again. For that reason, he tried taking Mera with him, but accidentally grabbed Magu instead. He then looks at Magu in a state of confusion, wondering if there was a freaky-looking youngster among the gods and beasts. It then throws Magu away without any hesitation, and Magu, who's lying on the ground, asks the monster who he is and what he wants to do with Mera. For a human to not know his name, that monster gets surprised, but decides to tell his name either way. With that, he introduces himself as Desperado, the one who controls this dungeon as one of the 7 demon lords. This reminds Magu that the first called was the one who fought the original demon lord, and hearing that Desperado is calling him one of the 7, Magu realizes that there might be 7 demon lords in total. Desperado further mentions that he had been waiting for them, but got impatient. Originally, he was planning to invite the divine beasts one by one as a reward for defeating the Keeper, and thought that he would devour them all. However, he never thought that there would be a weakling among them, and as a reward for coming this far, Desperado has decided to at least add Magu to the ranks of ghouls wandering this dungeon. Annoyed, Magu takes out the sword of Fiona, and seeing him wield the power of the divine beasts comes as a surprise to Desperado. Furthermore, he mentions that Magu's eyes remind him of someone else, which is truly unpleasant and something that deserves death. The first attack that Magu does is easily blocked by Desperado, but since Magu has been practicing using the powers of divine beasts, he believes that he can defeat him. But at the same time, there's a burden on his body because of using these powers, and Magu can't keep this up for long. Meanwhile, Desperado makes several swords appear and shoots all of them towards Magu. Luckily, he takes out Lawa's dagger and deflects the swords using the debris. Seeing him using both the powers of a phoenix and a dragon, Desperado figures out that he is the divine beast tamer of this era. This ends up making Desperado even more furious, who asks Magu if he is aware of what it means to wield that power in front of him. But all Magu knows is that everyone else will be in danger if he fails, and he decides to keep doing his best. Desperado swings his scythe, hoping to cut Magu, but just in time, Mera's bracelet puts up a shield and defends him against the attack. Desperado realizes that this is the power of a Kelpie, and in this state of surprise, Magu gets the chance to land an attack, managing to push Desperado back. Magu then follows up with another attack and manages to wound Desperado this time. While Magu notices that the weapons of divine beasts are effective against him, Desperado completely loses his cool, and in retaliation for inflicting an injury on him, he has now decided to end Magu's life. With that being said, Desperado shoots a long-range attack using his scythe, which Magu successfully dodges. Apparently, the air covering Desperado's body is made of super-dense magical power. It prevents all physical attacks and can be converted into a barrier that prevents magic as well. Thanks to this power, Desperado has become one of the 7 demon lords who reigned in one of the strongest corners of the world. Still, Magu dared to stand in front of him and challenge him in a battle. Although he is only a human, he brought so many beasts and combined their powers to pierce his shield. One divine beast wasn't a threat to Desperado, but the united power of multiple is surely a threat. Back in the past, his battle with a caller resulted in his brethren getting destroyed, and even Desperado was injured so badly that he had to sleep for thousands of years. Right now, he doesn't plan on making the same mistake and can't let a human crush him again. On the other hand, Magu notices that he is running out of stamina, and in addition to the continuous battle, the Demon Lord's attacks are too intense. Just then, Desperado notices Magu's leg shaking and asks if he has lost the power he had before. Even though Magu is aware that he is reaching his limits, he knows that he needs to endure it in order to save his peaceful life with the hot chicks. In a state of desperation, Magu throws a fireball at Desperado, but he easily manages to dodge it and starts powering up one of his attacks. Magu instantly realizes that something is wrong and decides to distance himself. However, there is nowhere to run as Magu is already against the cave wall, and in front of him is Desperado, who this time summons way more of those swords than he did the last time. Seeing all those swords rush towards him, Magu realizes that he will be eliminated even if one of them hits him. Knowing that there's no time for him to hesitate, he ends up running towards those swords. Seeing this, Desperado mentions that Magu's despair is amusing, and he is enjoying this exciting moment. Using the combination of the water shield and his sword, Magu manages to block most of the attack, but since there are so many of those swords, some of them end up penetrating the water shield and injuring Magu's body. However, he continues making his way forward and ends up getting behind the Demon Lord. Desperado notices the look in his eyes, those strong eyes overflowing with life and the sparkle inside them, as if they are aiming to deal with him for good. This reminds Desperado that he was once destroyed by a man with the very same eyes. He then informs Magu that he is not weak because he managed to endure his attacks and even managed to make him fear death. Magu might have been his greatest enemy, but still, his dwarf-sized body is not fully accustomed to the power of 3 divine beasts, and it has become clear that Magu has already reached his limits. Due to this, Desperado believes that Magu no longer has a chance of winning this fight. Magu agrees, saying that it feels like he's reaching the limit of how long he can use this power, but he will still make sure to destroy Desperado before it happens. Annoyed, Desperado calls him an inferior species and attacks him using his scythe. But to his surprise, Magu uses Fiona's sword and Lawa's dagger to block that attack. This makes Desperado wonder how he's still that strong even when his body has already exceeded its limits. Magu replies, saying that it's because he can't die. Just a few days earlier, he thought it would be good for the city if he were to die. But then, he met all the thick baddies and realized that he was yet to enjoy those cheeks. Knowing that he is not alone now and there's someone waiting for his return, it doesn't matter if Desperado is a demon lord or not, as he can't afford to lose after realizing that Desperado is aiming for those important to him. Furthermore, he announces that the power he is using belongs to the divine beasts ruling over the world, and at this point, he doesn't care if he ends up using his whole body. With that being said, he requests the others to lend him their powers and uses both weapons at once to attack Desperado. While Desperado finds it difficult to defend against the attack, both weapons end up flying out of Magu's hand due to the recoil from the power. But Magu is aware that this is his chance to end this, and by using the power of Mera's bracelet, he makes a water weapon appear. Knowing that this might be the last chance he will get, Magu charges Desperado with that weapon in hand and manages to stab him in the chest. Suddenly, Desperado starts feeling a sense of unease and realizes that he thought his awakening had something to do with the divine beast's power. But in reality, Desperado was drawn towards Magu. Confused, Magu wonders if this is a reaction to the caller skill, to which Desperado disagrees and mentions that it's Magu's strong will spirit and even surviving against the demon lord, which is what he's drawn to. The strong, whether it is good or evil, is where the bravest of souls lie. And with that, he tells Magu that someone who is capable of defeating the demon lord is no longer in the category of a human. He further mentions that the power Magu holds will surely lure him into further battles and advises him to get prepared for a troubled destiny. However, Magu doesn't seem to mind as long as he gets to live with those mommies at home. Ultimately, Magu digs that weapon deeper into Desperado's body, and the demon lord, who has given up, tells Magu to destroy him. It doesn't take long for Magu to penetrate his body and destroy the core inside him, which results in the demon lord disappearing for good. Sometime later, Magu wakes up on a bed and realizes that he is inside his room. Just then, he hears Lawa's voice, who, after seeing him wide awake, gets emotional and runs at him, saying that he was really scared about what might happen to him. The other two girls also arrive after hearing Lawa being loud and are shocked to see Magu awake. Fiona then informs him that he was covered in blood when they found him, and he got really worried. Lawa also adds that Mera was the one who stayed with him for 3 days and nights, healing him. After hearing all this, Magu makes sure to apologize to the girls for worrying them and shows his gratitude for the help. Following that, Lawa asks him about what happened, as when they rushed over, they saw something disappearing right next to him. Having no other choice, he informs them everything about the demon lord Desperado, which makes Mera realize that the dungeon master was a demon lord, and Fiona is also shocked to hear that there are 7 of them. Nonetheless, she comments on how Magu still managed to turn the tables, saying that this is exactly what she expected from her master. Seeing her wrap her hands around him, Lawa gets a bit worried, but at the same time, Mera walks towards Magu and ends up sitting on his lap, asking him to refrain from being so reckless all the time. Seeing those two shoving the milkers right onto Magu's face, Lawa gets annoyed and with tears in her eyes, threatens that she will go away. Mera then remembers that the meal is ready and asks if she should bring it to his room, but Magu decides to sit and eat with everyone instead. Afterward, Magu notices a giant pile of treasure right next to his bed and gets told by Lawa that it was hidden deep within the dungeon. Fiona then gives a ring to Magu from that treasure, asking him to try it on. She then explains that it is a magic tool, and simultaneously, Mera returns to the room, letting them know that she suddenly couldn't sense the caller skill. Fiona tells them that the ring erases the presence of its owner and can even block skills and magic. Hearing this makes Magu realize that he can now go down to a human village, to which Fiona agrees. With this much gold, silver, and treasure, it would be a waste not to use it, and she advised him to go do some shopping. Magu also figures that while the self-sufficient lifestyle has been pretty fulfilling, there are still some things they are lacking. Lastly, Fiona mentions that there is one problem, which is that the ring only lasts around 5 days. Lawa adds that since the caller's power is so immense, the ring can only handle it for that long. But once they go to the human village together and he shows them what he wants, the girls can just do the shopping for him in the future. While Magu is a bit disappointed that it will only remain for 5 days, it's still better than nothing, as he thought he would be staying in the mountains forever. With that being said, they all prepare to head to a human city, and Magu jumps on Lawa's back. She reassures him that she is using her powers to protect him from the wind. On the other hand, even though Fiona has agreed to give Mera a ride, she warns him not to get water on her. Simultaneously, Loa increases her speed, which surprises Magu, as even though they are going so fast, it's comfortable for him thanks to her blocking the wind. Magu then takes out his sword and makes sure to do some aura farming poses to impress the baddies. Instead of getting impressed, Loa starts laughing and mentions how raising his sword like that makes him look like a dragon rider. Magu lets her know that dragon riders are legendary warriors, and that riding dragons to save the world is the dream of every boy. While she doesn't know much about it, Loa informs him that many of the dragon riders were callers when suddenly, something grabs their attention, and it turns out to be a giant footprint on the ground. Mera wonders if it belongs to one of the 4 great divine beasts, but since they are headed in the opposite direction, the chances of them seeing it are low. Moreover, their pet cat pops his head out of Magu's clothes. The reason Magu brought him along was that he was worried about leaving him behind. Mera informs Magu that this cat is really a monster thrown out of the dungeon. Apparently, when a dungeon is subjugated and disappears, all of its monsters disappear as well, but maybe it was Magu's relationship with the cat that kept it from disappearing. Before long, they reach the royal capital, and Mera suggests getting off a little further as it could create a fuss in the town. As they walk towards the capital, Magu can't help but feel nervous as he's a country bumpkin who has lived in a village his whole life. Eventually, they reach the gate of the royal capital, and after walking inside, Loa is shocked to see so many people. But first, they decide to head to an exchange shop and end up exchanging a small amount of their treasure for the town's currency. The girls start to wonder if it will be enough for all the shopping, and are told by Magu that it will be more than enough, asking them to get whatever they like. After shopping together for a while, all Fiona buys is food, while Loa, on the other hand, ends up buying some books. When Magu asks her about it, she mentions that books are interesting, and she wishes to learn the human alphabet as well, considering she will be living with Magu. Mera then suggests finding an inn before it gets dark, and while they are busy in their own world, a 9-tailed fox secretly spies on them. After booking a room in the inn, they heard about the public baths from the local innkeeper, and decided to go there in order to relieve their exhaustion. However, when Loa started forcing Magu to join them in the bath, he had no other choice but to wait for them outside. There, he hears some footsteps and notices the same beast emerging from the shadows. She apologizes for startling him and reassures Magu that she won't do anything to him. Surprised, Magu calls her a beast, which frustrates her as she doesn't want to be lumped in with the youngsters he is acquainted with. Nonetheless, she then transforms into her real form and introduces herself as Kuzunoha. Magu instantly recognizes her as the 9-tailed fox that is said to live for thousands of years. Curious, he asks if she's a divine beast as well, to which she agrees and compliments him for doing a good job holding back his caller skill. Furthermore, being able to guess that she's a divine beast makes her figure that Magu must be a strong person who has survived and encountered divine beasts before. For that reason, she wishes to speak with him and asks Magu to come with her as she is in need of a tea-drinking companion. Without thinking much, he ends up accepting the offer and brings him to her house. Magu is surprised to see how it looks like a home for a normal human, to which Kuzunoha replies that it's because she has chosen to live like a normal human in this country. When Magu asks the reason, she is living in the royal capital. Kuzunoha lets him know that she came here several decades ago, and living here was convenient for her. As she is closer to immortality than a phoenix, she figured that taking a few decades-long vacation wouldn't be such a bad idea. However, there was one important thing she had forgotten, which was that Kuzunoha was yet to make a friend with whom she could open up. Following that, she pours him some green tea, informing him that it's an oriental tea that contains the flavor of her hometown. Even though she has a lot of things to talk about, Kuzunoha figures that he might get bored only listening to her and requests that he talk about himself as well. Although Magu doesn't mind, he warns Kuzunoha that she might get bored, but Kuzunoha doesn't seem to mind and allows him to yap for as long as he wants. He then tells her about everything that happened to him, including the fact that he's still alive thanks to the powers everyone lent him. Kuzunoha mentions that at first, she only saw strength in his eyes, but now she has realized that they also seem to reflect his emotions. Just then, the door to her house slams open, followed by the arrival of the 3 of them. As expected, Magu receives a scolding session from Loa, who warns him not to follow any divine beast he comes across. Mera asks Loa to leave it at that, as Magu seems to be safe, and they were able to meet him. Not only that, but Kuzunoha doesn't seem to be a bad person either, and her tea is pretty delicious as well. Afterward, Kuzunoha mentions how she never expected him to be living with 3 divine beasts, as well as defeating the demon lord, because it's like the second coming of the original caller. This makes Magu ask if the original caller also lived with divine beasts, and Kuzunoha replies that she heard about it from her master. Additionally, she believes that her master was acting together with the original caller, and is pretty sure that there used to be around 5 or 6 divine beasts, sometimes even up to 10. Loa realizes something after hearing this and asks if Kuzunoha's master was the celestial silver dragon, but Kuzunoha disagrees, and when Magu asks if that dragon is someone famous, Mera replies that he's a big celebrity in the world of divine beasts. Fiona then mentions that Kuzunoha is the head of the Oriental Divine Beasts and asks if it's really all right for her to be drinking tea in such a foreign land. Kuzunoha starts shaking after hearing this and lets them know that she ran away because her master is really strict. Furthermore, she tries changing the topic and decides to take them to a special place tomorrow. The next morning, Kuzunoha, along with the girls, visits a magic shop where she calls for the shop owner. Meanwhile, the others enjoy looking at all the different kinds of items present when unexpectedly, Fiona notices a long case clock move on its own, followed by the appearance of a creepy-looking person. She tells Kuzunoha not to tease her just because she is free, but Kuzunoha lets her know that she is here to shop today. Moreover, she informs the shopkeeper that she needs to buy a grimoire, causing the shopkeeper to mock Kuzunoha for wanting to spend a lot of money on another fake. Nonetheless, while she goes to find the grimoires, Magu remembers that grimoires are designed to help strengthen sorcery skills. Kuzunoha then tells Magu that he is pretty bad at magic, but still is able to utilize a portion of the immense magical power of a divine beast. This means he must have a sense of handling magic. Additionally, she informs him that when he unconsciously transmits his voice to the heart of divine beasts, it is made possible by consuming the magic power within the atmosphere. But with the aid of a grimoire, she believes that Magu should be able to use magic. Soon after, the shopkeeper returns and shows her the few grimoires she found. Kuzunoha mentions how she wants to pick the best one for her tea-drinking companion, shocking the shopkeeper, who can't believe someone as petty as her can have friends. Following that, Kuzunoha takes a good look at the grimoires and ends up choosing one she likes. Magu is surprised to see it is not as thick as he thought, and Kuzunoha informs him that this size helps eliminate redundant lessons, and it's best for those who are not familiar with magic. As soon as Magu holds it, a blue shine surrounds his body, and Kuzunoha tells him that this is proof of his affinity with the grimoire. Additionally, the grimoire's functions have gone dormant, and in order to fix it, she begins pouring some magic. However, seeing that her magic alone isn't enough, the others decide to help her out as well. Even though Mera warns her about the amount, Kuzunoha argues that they should be adding more, and before long the grimoire starts shining really brightly. Without wasting a second, Kuzunoha throws the grimoire into the sky, and it releases a huge burst of energy. Soon after, it lands on the ground again, and Mera mentions how dangerous it was as the store could have been blown away. Kuzunoha tells them not to worry, as it has just released excess magic and can function properly now. As soon as Magu touches the grimoire, the knowledge about magic starts flowing into him. Kuzunoha further reveals that it is impossible to use magic without magician skill, but Magu can compensate for that using the power of divine beasts, and it's always good to have more hands he can use. According to her, handling magic might be difficult for him, and he'll probably need practice. This is because the authority of divine beasts is too much of a burden for humans, as after fighting Desperado, Magu collapsed as well. With that, Magu thanks Kuzunoha for helping him out, and she informs him that talking to him was really enjoyable. Their conversation is interrupted by the shopkeeper, who reminds them to pay for it. Both Magu and Kuzunoha start fighting about who should pay, forcing Magu to flex the insane amount of bread he has to win the argument. After leaving the shop, Kuzunoha asks if they have visited any famous places in the royal capital, and when they disagree, she informs them that there are many famous structures and famous restaurants worth visiting. Hearing this makes them realize that it's too early to head back to the inn, and Kuzunoha takes it upon herself to show them around. The girls instantly take her up on her offer, and the first place they visit is the center of the royal capital. There seem to be many huge mansions of rich merchants around who tend to hire servants and leave the cleaning duty to them. Fiona mentions that if the amount is large, it might be difficult to account for it. Hearing this makes Magu decide to leave the shopping duty to Fiona. However, Loa intervenes, telling Fiona that she could get ripped off by the wrong person, suggesting they leave the shopping duty to her. Fiona replies that the shorty could get pickpocketed as well, causing both of them to argue with each other. Kuzunoha, seeing them fight, gets terrified, thinking that a fight between them could reduce the city to the ground, but Magu reassures her that this scene plays out every day. In the end, he is forced to make them stop fighting, which impressed Kuzunoha as she had never seen anyone silence a dragon and a phoenix with just a few words. Later that day, the next spot they visit is a tower, and when they inquire about it, Kuzunoha replies that this is the Pillar of Divine Beasts, where they get to see fairy tales about divine beasts. Additionally, the art created by masters is pretty amazing as well. With that being said, they all enter the tower where they see many stories carved on the wall. Loa mentions that, despite being fairy tales, most of them are true. Officially, it is said that the creator is unknown, but it was created by the first caller and the divine beasts in their free time. Ultimately, they reach the top of the tower, where they notice the eye of a certain demon lord present. Apparently, this eye was the last enemy that the original caller defeated. It is said that if the eye is given enough power, it allows one to see into the future. Kuzunoha tests it out, and judging by the reaction, informs them that there won't be any misfortune for a while. Just as they are about to leave, Loa notices something and informs Magu that it feels like the eye is covered in must. However, they blame it on their imagination, and as soon as they walk away from it, the mist appears once again. Do you think Kuzunoha will start living with them as well? Comment Beast if you'd like a part 2 of this series. As usual, thank you for tuning in and we'll catch you in the next one.